Hey guys, so this is an update on my Spellblade Flamereave. Uh, the range is now consistent and it attacks faster, and it generates ward whenever we use Flamereave. So we are using a +3 Flamereave armor. We are using the unique ring, Sunwreath, for the circular AoE, and yeah, like what you see, let's get into it. Okay, first things first, we have Flamereave. I have put 4 points on Arcane Severance, 4 points on Ember Infusion, and 1 point on Flame Color, so that Flamereave returns to us. I got 3 points on Precise Destruction, 3 points on Infernal Alchemy. Infernal Alchemy is like the weaker version, or the slightly weaker version of a Lost Knowledge. It grants us 45 ward whenever we critically strike one enemy. And top that off with Lost Knowledge, we get around 319 plus 45 ward whenever we hit an enemy. Next is 2 points on Rolling Flames for better range, and 2 points on Ashen Waste for critical multiplier. We will be getting 2 points on Dancing Flames to get to Frenzied Flame, so that we can have Frenzy whenever we use Flamereave. This might need some trial and error, mix and match, because this setup, the number of points that you need here depends on the mana cost of your Sunwreath. So as you can see, I have 7 mana cost here for Flamereave, and I put 2 points in here to get to 40 mana, exactly 40 mana cost, which will trigger the Lost Knowledge every time we use Flamereave. So you might not get 40 mana cost, it might be more, it might be less, so you need to mix and match Sunwreath, or if you have multiple Sunwreath, you can try to get +7 here if possible, but if not, then you can just respec 1 point on here, or rather you do not get this one at all and just put them all in here. The reason why I put 2 here is for the decreased mana cost, since this one spikes up the mana cost. This is to mitigate it, and luckily I got exactly 40 mana. Next is Surge. So I'm using a Static and Surge. Static is just a support skill, just to have haste and also mana whenever we discharge Surge. So I put 1 point on Jolt, 2 points on Storm Battery, 1 point on Flaming Surge, and 1 point on Pyroclasm, just to get an extra Flamereave whenever we surge into an enemy. 1 point on Shocking Blows, 2 points on Conduit, 5 points on Static Buildup, 3 points on Capacitator, and 1 point on Discharge, just to get at least 1 to 2 seconds of haste every time we use Surge. And also last 3 points for Storm Aegis. And for Mana Strike, again 4 points on Swift Sap, just to maximize the mana gain. 2 points on Rage Sap, just to get increased damage. 1 point on Sprite Blade to get to Mana Drain, to get to critical mana. 3 points on Mana Drain, 4 points on critical mana. Next is Static. So we set up Static just to get momentum and ward proportional to your charges, and since this has a cooldown and we don't really directly cast Static, the cooldown is neglected, or bypassed rather. So 4 points on High Voltage, 1 point on Storm Chaser, 1 point on Momentum, 2 points on Overcharge, 5 points on Reverberation, 3 points on Fulminating Blows, and 4 points on Insulation. Last is Enchant Weapon, and this is wrong. This should be For Enchant Weapon, you should be getting 5 points on Celerity, 5 points on Molten Steel, 4 points on Concentration, 1 point on Desperation, since we are going to be consuming our mana all the time. 4 points on Efficacy, actually 3 points rather, and 1 point on Kindling Blade, so that it automatically recasts. You should remove this. I don't know why it's set up like that, but it should be 5 points, 5 points, 4 points, 4 points, and 1 point on these two. Yeah, that should be equal to 20 points. Next is for the weapons. Since we have Arcane Severance, melee damage per spell damage, we will be needing a good Obsidian Scepter. Since Obsidian Scepter grants us plus melee damage and plus spell damage, those two stats will benefit Flamereave. Another option for this is a Rune Dagger, melee damage, spell damage, and critical strike chance, since we do want to always critical strike for the ward and for Flamereave damage. So if you have a good Rune Dagger, try to use it. If not, then try to use an Obsidian Scepter. The affixes should be melee attack speed, fire damage, melee fire if you can seal one, critical strike chance, and yeah, increased stun chance is not bad. And that's it for this weapon. The other one, the offhand weapon, should be a Crystal Sword, since Crystal Swords grants us melee damage, increased melee elemental damage, and melee attack speed. So we want to have Flamereave to have as high of a attack speed as possible, and as high of a crit as possible. Next is for the helmet. Helmet is just your typical helmet. You just need to have intelligence, mana, resistance, and increased health. Also, try to get your mana as at least 300, because our idols will be we will be fully utilizing our idols with respect to our mana. Next is Amulet. So just get critical strike chance, your typical resistances, and elemental damage or fire damage. Next is the armor. We need to have +3 Flamereave on our armor and some health. If you don't have +3 Flamereave, you can just use this one as substitute. If you have this, Wings of Argentus, it also grants us haste for 1 second on hit. The downside is it just grants us 2 levels 2 fire melee attacks. Next is our belt. Now we have just a increased health and increased cooldown recovery speed. So we want our cooldown recovery speed to be as high as possible so that we can surge a lot, but it's not really required. So you can just use this as resistances also. And if you can have increased fire damage for your belt, that would be great. Next is for the ring. I have an exalted ring here and just the typical resistances. I also have another ring here. If you can include critical strike chance to the prefix, try to get that. Next is the ring, Sunwreath. This is the only unique item that we need. And as I mentioned before, the mana cost, the Flamereave mana cost is important, since we need to set this up more than, or at least close to 40 mana cost. Next is gloves, just your typical increased melee attack speed and critical strike chance. If you can also get shred armor, that would be great. Next is for boots. I have a T7 intelligence here and movement speed, and also cooldown recovery speed. Intelligence is also good since it scales with intelligence, and also intelligence grants us something with. Oh, I did not get this. So yeah, it can either be intelligence or dexterity to increase the damage. Lastly, we have Scroll of Purity, because this grants us mana. The implicit grants us mana, and also mana spent gain us ward. So this also grants us ward whenever we cast Flamereave. I have a T7 mana here, and crit molt, and a necrotic resistance. So with these items, I got around 319 mana. And for the idols, I've used increased fire damage, doubled if you have 300 max mana. I have 4 of them, the 3x1 and the 2 2x2s. If you cannot, if you don't have enough mana, then you can substitute some of these to get like increased mana. Hold on. Yeah, like this one, you can use these, and also the increased mana. You can substitute some of these and just get to 300. Next is for the passive skill tree. So I put we have 25 points on Mage. I put 2 points on Elementalist, 8 points on Arcanist, 5 points on Mage Flurry to get the 15% increased attack speed, 10 points on Knowledge of Destruction for the critical strike chance, 25 points on Sorcerer, 6 points on Calculated Destruction since it's still bugged right now. It also increased our melee critical strike chance, so try to get 6 points, or 5 points on this rather. 8 points on Mana Shell, 1 point on Wisdom to get to Lost Knowledge. 10 points. Our ward generation comes from Lost Knowledge. Next is for Spellblade. I put 6 points on Elemental Affinity, 8 points on Infused Weapon, 8 points on Arcane Warden, 5 points on Arcane Shielding, 4 points on Fireblood, 5 points on Essence Duel, 5 points on Mana Reaver, 1 point on Gemini, 8 points on Prismatic Blade, 5 points on Burden of Knowledge. Burden of Knowledge increases Flamereave's damage because of Arcane Severance. It converts spell damage, or rather it allows spell damage to also increase our melee damage of Flamereave. And 8 points for Outrun and Outlast, just to get the increased cooldown recovery speed for Surge. And that's it for this build right here. I'll stitch up some videos, some 200 corruption videos. And lastly, for the blessings, I did not really get any blessings, but if you want to have a rune dagger, I'll try to get this Grand Subtlety of Slaughter to increase your drop chance to get an exalted rune dagger, and also try to get some resistances if possible. Armor is alright too. Try to get chance to shred fire on hit. I'll just link it up on the last Epoch tools. And yeah, that's it for this build, guys. I hope you enjoyed. It's just an update. It's not really good for bosses, mostly for clearing, but it can do bosses, so I hope you enjoy. So if you like what you see, or if you think there can be some improvements on this build, just leave a comment down below. So that's it, guys. Thanks.